Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to today's class. Today we'll be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, verse 49. And we are at the kind of a climax section where the Pandavas have taken renunciation. They are leaving, lack of a better word, they are leaving the palace. They are focusing their minds on Lord Krishna, ready to leave the world because the Lord has left the planet. And we are just starting to get into Vidur and what happens to him. We are very happy to have His Holiness Candramauli Swami with us. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to you and all goes to Prabhupada Maharaj.
Evo, glories to Srila Prabhupada. My obeisances to all the devotees. Panchakalpa tarubhescha kripa sindhu bhavacha itanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Viduro pi pariyagyaya bhavase deham atmanaham Krishna vesena tatschita pitribir swashayam yayo. Translation: Vidura, while on pilgrimage, left his body at Prabhash. Because he was absorbed in thought of Krishna, he was received by the denizens of the Prithvi Loka planet, where he returned to his original post. Purport: the difference between the Pandavas and Vidura is that the Pandavas are eternal associates of the Lord. Personality of God. Vidura is one of the administration demigods in charge of the Prithvi Loka planet and is known as Yamaraj. Men are afraid of Yamaraj because it is he only who awards punishment to the miscreants of the material world. But those who are devotees of the Lord have nothing to fear from him. To the devotees, he is a cordial friend, but to the non-devotee, he is fear prasadapam. As we have already discussed, it is understood that Yamaraj was cursed by Mandukya Muni to become degraded as a Sudra, and therefore Vidura was an incarnation of Yamaraj. As an eternal servitor of the Lord, he displayed his devotional activities very ardently and lived a life of a pious man, so much so that a materialistic man like Dhritarashtra also got salvation by his instruction. So by his pious activities and devotional service of the Lord, he was able to always remember the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus he became washed of all contamination of a Sudra-born life. At the end, he was again received by the denizens of Pitriya Loka and posted in his original position. Demigods are also associates of the Lord without personal touch, whereas the direct associates of the Lord are in constant personal touch with him. The Lord and his personal associates incarnate in many universes without cessation. The Lord remembers them all, whereas the associates forget due to their being very minute parts and parcels of the Lord. They are apt to forget such incidents due to being infinitesimal. This is corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita 4.5. Om Gyan Tamidandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksun militam yena tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Paschatya De Satarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Paevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Vidura, who is actually Yamaraj, that's his real identity. He is the Lord of Death, whose service to the Supreme Lord is to punish the materialistic persons. At the time they leave their body, they're given another body, a subtle body, and in that subtle body they have to enter into these different realms of hell. And these are different places that are described according to the sinful nature of the person's life. And there are many hells. There are 27 hells. And you can read about them. They're at the end of the 5th canto. Each one of them is in depth described. So Yamaraj, he has to do this service. That's not a very nice service for a devotee, because a devotee of the Lord doesn't like to cause harm to anyone, but his service is to reciprocate people's sinful activity by giving them the results in the form of punishment, and then preparing them for their next body. So one time he was thinking, I wish I could go and preach Krishna consciousness somewhere in the material universes. So he developed that desire, but he kept the desire to himself. And then in due course of time, a particular incident came wherein Mandaka Muni, a great Muni, was in his ashram, and some thieves had committed a horrible crime and took shelter of his ashram. The police came and they arrested everyone, including Mandaka Muni. And they sentenced everyone to death in a very horrible way. It's called Trishu, where they plant you with your bottom side onto a sharp spear, and they drop you on that spear, and the spear goes all the way through your body and comes out the top of your head. So he was sentenced to that kind of death. And then the word got back just before they were about to kill Mandaka Muni to the king, and the king said, "What is this? Why is this Muni being punished in this way?" So the king investigated, and he came and he let Mandaka Muni out. And Mandaka Muni explained he had nothing to do with the crime, but the police didn't accept it at first. So he was wrongly harassed and punished in that way. And he was about to be killed in a very gruesome way. But the king came and pardoned him. And then Mandaka Muni was thinking, why was I put through this situation? And so he was thinking, I should contact Yamaraj, and he had the power. And so he came and he spoke to Yamaraj and saying, why was I given this kind of harassment? I was completely innocent. And Yamaraj looked the record and said, yes, but actually there is a reason. When you were a young boy, you were playing with an ant and you had some straw, and you pricked the ant in the rectum with the straw, and the ant was killed. And so this is what you had to go through. And then Mandaka Muni said, well, that was just child's play. I didn't even know. I was just a young child. So he felt that he was wrongly punished because this was just some incident with a little child and a man. But still, that everyone's responsible for everything you kill, because it says that people in the material world are building up sinful activity simply by living. If you're walking along the streets and you're stepping on ants or something, you're killing. You're painting your walls or sanding the floors in your houses, you may be killing small living creatures. The Jains, they carry a mask over their face, thinking that if we're breathing, we're killing germs, so they put the mask there. Of course, that is ineffectual. So this idea that one is responsible for even the killing of a tiny little insect, and this comes all the way down and it fits into one's pious or impious credits. Of course, the principle is, if you're a devotee, then if you're engaged in devotional service, then whatever activities you perform are not under the influence of the three modes of material nature. They're under the influence of the Daivi Shakti, or the spiritual energy, and therefore there's no karma connected with spiritual activity. So Prabhupada said, if you're walking to the temple to go see the deity or perform some service, and you're stepping on ants, you can't help it sometimes, you don't even know they're there. There's no reaction because you are doing some type of devotional activity. So you can see that the non-devotees, they're building up their just living in the material world means you're committing sinful activities. You can't help it. It's just the way the world is working. And all of that is building up, and people will get a reaction for that. And Yamaraj is the person that gives them the results of their pious or impious activities. And so when Mandaka Muni, he became a little unhappy that he had to be put through all of this, and so he cursed Yamaraj to take birth as a Sudra in the material world. And that was his birth as Vidura. But it was actually fulfilling Yamaraj's desire to come to the material world, to get away from his service as punishment for a little while and do some preaching. And that's exactly what happened. So much so that Prabhupada said that he was able to, save the life of a very materialistic person like Dhritarashtra, who was able to reach liberation, salvation, simply by the association and the instructions that he received from Vidura. So we can see how powerful devotional service is, that one who takes to devotional service is free from all of the reactions of sinful activities and becomes purified. So Dhritarashtra was fortunate, and that was his good fortune. Otherwise, he had committed very heavy sinful activities by trying to kill the Pandavas. He was behind some of the plots that his son Duryodhana organized in order to destroy the Pandavas, such as the House of Lac, like that, bandaging them into the forest for 13 years. So it mentions in this chapter, in the early part, that he was very much responsible for really sinful activities, but because of the mercy of a great soul like Vidura, he somehow or other got the chance to become purified, engaged in some form of devotional life, some yoga process where he purified himself and got salvation. He didn't go back to Godhead, but at least he got, freedom from all sinful reactions. Yeah. Now, this is a little bit about the story of Yamaraj, who later became Vidura. And because he was a Sudra, born of a Sudra mother, he wasn't so much appreciated by the royal family, and they kind of marginalized. But he was a great devotee of the Lord. Yamaraj is one of the 12 Mahajans: Brahma, Narada, Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Prahlad, Bhishma, Janaka, Bali Maharaj, who else? And of course, Yamaraj also. So all of these, there's 12. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam in one particular verse, all 12 are listed. They are Mahajano Yena Kata Samplanta. That means they teach the process of pure devotional service. And one has to follow in the footsteps of a Mahajan in order to reach the perfection of devotional service. We are in the Sampradaya of Brahma. So we are the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. And Brahma is the head of our Sampradaya, but he is also a Mahajan. So these persons, one has to take shelter of. So Vidura is not a small person. He's really a powerful person. Very much so that his service is giving punishment to miscreants in this material world. That's not easy. He has to decide what type of punishment they are supposed to get. So it's not an easy thing. Before they, so it mentions that, Yamaraj at one time said to his leading scribe is called Chandragupta. He called Chandragupta in and he asked him, well, what is the sins of Jagai and Madai? And Chandragupta, who keeps the records for Yamaraj, said, my dear master, we have just hired 30 new scribes just for Jagai and Madai, and they are working around the clock to record all of their sinful activities of Jagai and Madai, and they're exhausted. And we are already 30 days behind in keeping up with their activities. So when Yamaraj heard that, he was beside himself with anguish. But then later on, Yamaraj, when he heard that Jagai and Madai got purified by the mercy of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, he danced. He danced in ecstasy, in the glories of Mahaprabhu's supreme compassion upon the fallen souls. So actually, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are making the service of Yamaraj much more lighter by pre-world and picking up all the Jagais and Madais and turning them into devotees. We think we're so advanced because we are devotee, but actually, what is our advancement? We are hardly anything in terms of, we've been associating with and engaged in many sinful activities prior to coming to Krishna consciousness. It's only by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, through his pure representative, the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada and the predecessor spiritual masters, that the living entity in this age has any chance to even begin to nullify the reactions of their sinful activity. This age of Kali is very bad. Kalir dosha nidhi rajan asti eko mahagi. So kalir dosha means fault, nidhi means ocean. There is an ocean of faults in this age, and everyone is touched by the effects of Kali Yuga, even those who are pious are affected by, and sometimes corrupted by these lower modes, passion and ignorance. The devotees have to work very diligently to not to be influenced by the atmosphere of Kali Yuga, which is so permeated with sinful activities, illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, gambling, and various other types of bad qualities permeate the entire age. When you read the 12th canto, 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, you get a very long list of the contaminations in this age. And you can see them as they manifest right now. And it also talks about how the age is degrading. I was just listening today, and Prabhupada was saying as Kali Yuga progresses, people will be harassed more and more. There will be shortages of food, and there will be inflation at the same time, and high taxes given by the governments. Turn around and just look at the newspapers or what's happening both in the big countries of the world, such as US, UK, and others. This is exactly what's happening right now. High inflation and shortages of certain foodstuffs. Things are becoming scarce, and more forms of taxation and various types of tariffs being imposed onto the citizens. This will continue as Kali Yuga continues until people become so harassed that they'll leave their hearth and home and just go to the forest. But it also mentions in the 11th canto that the Lord will appear as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. And by the mercy of the Sankirtan movement, the conditioned souls will have a chance to free themselves from the effects of Kali and make progress in devotional service towards the goal of life. And by Lord Chaitanya's special compassionate mercy, he's made the process of Sudha Bhakta very, very doable. It says that he's giving the highest to the lowest. He's teaching or explaining Krishna and Sri Vrindavan Dham. And by the power of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and by service to the Vaishnavas, you can't separate these two. You can't just chant the Hare Krishna mantra and expect to get the benefit of chanting. You have to include service to the Vaishnavas as being one of the features of how one executes their devotional. So Lord Chaitanya emphasized these two. And of course, Jiva Doya, that means giving mercy to the conditioned souls by preaching Krishna consciousness to the fallen souls in this world. So this is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And so he's making the job or the service of Yamaraj much more lighter and easier by picking up thousands and thousands of Jagais and Madhais, because it says in the scriptures that this pastime of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda saving Jagai and Madhai is not simply a historical incident. It's not simply a story within the scriptures of the Lord's activities. What is it? What is it? It is a constant feature of Lord Chaitanya's mercy that's going on today. So Lord Chaitanya is still working to pick up the Jagais and Madhais and situate them in the process of pure devotional service. And because they're chanting the holy names and learning the science of bhakti, they're becoming free from the influence of Yamaraj. Because if you read about those hellish planets, they're not fictitious. They're not somebody's imagination. They're not some nice stories just to make the whole Bhagavatam more exciting. These are realities, these hells. So the reactions for sinful activities are awaiting the conditioned souls when they leave their body, and they will have to meet these personalities who are the assistants of Yamaraj. They're called the Yamadutas. I have two stories in the Hare Krishna history of our society. There was one devotee whose father was somewhat of a macho. You might use the word macho. Those of you who are from other countries, macho means a tough guy. You know, he's like really tough. You don't mess with such persons. So he was on the verge of death, and he also was very keen on hunting. He would go out and hunt animals. So when he was dying, he started to really get frightened, and his eyes got big, and then he called to his wife, "Bring my gun, bring my gun." So he was seeing the Yamadutas coming to take him away while he was still in his body. And then, of course, right after that, he died. So his son was a nice devotee of the Lord. His son told the whole story to all of us. Just recently in Croatia, there was one devotee who was in the hospital with some terminal disease, and there were many other patients in the nearby wards. And he was saying that when some of these people were dying, and they were frightened, they were screaming when they were dying because they were seeing the Yamadutas coming to take them away. These people are not nice guys to meet. You don't want to meet them. They're quite fierce looking. They carry ropes and various types of weapons to arrest. They take the subtle body of the departed soul, which still has the soul in it, and they bring it to Yamaraj. And so, and then that subtle body has to go through a whole series of sufferings, which are based on the quality of their sinful activities, characteristic of their sinful activities. So, therefore, we have to be grateful for the fact that Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, by the mercy of his pure representative, Srila Prabhupada, is saving the conditioned souls and bringing them to the platform of pure devotional service, freeing them from so much suffering that comes by way of living in this material world. And each time the living entity dies, they have to go through this and then get another body. And the more sinful they are, the lower the body they get in their next life, and the longer they have to wait to receive that body because their punishment is long term. For a devotee who dies in Krishna consciousness, it says then they immediately attain to the spiritual world. It's instantaneous, just like a flash of lightning. A flash of lightning, and so that flash is just instantaneous. So that's how fast the devotees attain the spiritual world when they leave their body. So we can avoid Yamaraj. Although he's a nice guy, as Prabhupada said here, to devotees, he's a cordial friend. To the non-devotees, he is fear personified. So that same Yamaraj came as an incarnation of Vidura to assist Lord Krishna in his pastimes when he was on the planet 5,000 years ago. Hare Krishna. You're on mute.
Sorry, Maharaj, I was trying to unmute this button and it kept playing games with me. Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you to all the devotees for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask devotees to please do open your videos, turn on your videos where possible so that we can ask our questions. And very deep topic, and it's a very deep yet very sweet. And Marge, as you were speaking about the pastime of Mandaka Muni, we actually, in our temple, we did a drama. I was able to find a script, some from the ISKCON Chowpatty temple, and we did a script on Vidur's last life, when with that whole Trishul, pastime and all that. And it was very educational for our congregation because I realized that, as much as we read Bhagavatam, it's so nice to enact it. Somehow it stays in devotees' minds.
Yeah, these things are real.
Yes, yes.
Living in the material world means dangerous place.
It sure is, Maharaj. Absolutely. Would like to ask devotees if you can raise your hands for any questions, any clarification, or any points that you would like to add. Please do raise your hand and I will call upon you in the order. And I really request devotees, as we're beginning the year, please do really take time to ask a question, even if it's not related to this topic, but something that you've read or heard and you need clarification. Please do raise your hand. Marge, there's one question that I would like to ask, and Srila Prabhupada mentioned in his verse that it said, one who is not fearless and one who is fearless. Marge, how can one develop to be fearless and to build that faith in the Lord?
On the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the first 3 verses describe the good qualities of the devotees, and one is fearlessness. Fearlessness means complete dependence on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to see everything in relationship to the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada gives an example in his own life wherein this was in World War II. He was in his place in Calcutta, and at that time the Germans the Germans were bombing the English Quarter, and they were living in that area. So, and before the bombs would come, the sirens would go off to signal people to go into the bunkers, the shelters, the bomb shelters. So Prabhupada was there in his home, and his wife was cooking that evening. His friend was also there. So then the sirens came off. The bombs were about to come. So his friend said, Abhay was Prabhupada's name, let's go to the bomb shelter. Prabhupada declined. He said, no, I'm going to stay here. You can go. And so his friend left. And Prabhupada describes this story, and he was saying, I was hearing the bombs coming. Zing, boom, zing, boom, zing, boom. And I was thinking, here comes Krishna in the form of a bomb. So that's pure consciousness. One sees everything in relationship to the Lord. So fearlessness is strengthened by giving up material attachments and material activities. The more one depends on the material world and finds looking for some security, happiness in that way, that fear aspect will always be there. Fear is there even in devotees, but devotees can be free from the fear when they understand fully, and nothing happens without the sanction of the Lord. And the Lord explains that in the Bhagavad Gita in 14:27, where he says, I am the overseer and permitter. So what does that mean? That means that he allows things to happen or he makes things happen. For the material energy, he allows things to happen. He doesn't interfere with the karma of the material energy. The only way he interferes with the person's karma is that they take shelter of the Lord. Then the Lord gives protection to the devotee, even though they're still in the material world. So the Lord is the supreme protector, and nothing can happen without his sanction. I'll tell you a story. Just recently, in the war in
Ukraine,
in the,
Maharaj?
in the Ukraine, yeah, the war in the Ukraine. The one devotee, he was fighting, and he was a soldier on the Ukrainian army, and he was with many of his associates, but everyone saw him as, he was very godly, very pious. So, of course, they were not. But he was together with his friends, and they were fighting. A missile landed right in the area where they were, and the missile landed right on his shoe. And on the top of the missile, there's a detonator, because when the missile hits, the detonator goes off and the bomb explodes. But when the missile hit, it hit his shoe, and because it hit his shoe, the detonator didn't work. And the bomb did not go off. I just heard this story from Niranjan Swami. He was just telling me this a couple of days ago. And all of his friends in the military, they all thought, we're going to become devotees. So just because of that incident, many of them actually took up devotional life. Because that bomb would have killed them all, but because it landed on his shoe and the detonator didn't click. Yeah, and this is a story I just heard. So yeah, Krishna protects his devotees. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Maharaj, such pastimes, when we hear such real life pastimes, even whatever is happening in the so-called the current times, it's so real that it's so inspiring and so promising, like I wish there was some way that we can hear such pastimes of fear, I mean, of faith and belief and trust. It makes us definitely, at least makes me feel that what we're going through is nothing. Like
It
it's
is.
really nothing.
But we don't need all of these things to make us
Mm,
believe. We take Krishna's words coming from
mm,
Shastra.
mm,
Of course, when we get these examples, it fortifies our strength, our belief. But for you can see that those who are fixed in Krishna consciousness, they don't need miracles because they're seeing miracles every moment. Every moment for a devotee is like a miracle is happening somehow. And that's Krishna's way of taking care of his devotees, because he takes them to another level of consciousness where the laws of energy don't work on a devotee. At least the full impact of those laws don't work. Sometimes we get a slight reaction to the laws of material energy, but never to the full extent that the non-devotees get. That's why devotees don't suffer, because they may have to go through inconveniences or some difficulties, but they don't suffer because they know I'm not this body. They're in the realization they're not this body. So if something happens to the body, they somehow tolerate it because they know having a material body means to be in a difficult situation. But the Krishna always protects his devotee. Kontiya pratijani hi name bhakta pranashisti. He says that.
Thank you so much, Marge. Yes. And it's so true. We see miracles every day and we just take it for granted, not understanding that it's Krishna's mercy, Krishna's protection. Thank you so much, Marge. Any questions from devotees? We have a quiet morning, but it'll be nice if we can ask a wonderful question. Yes, Scarlett Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for today. I have many questions, but I will ask one now, and then if there is time and possible, then I will ask other question also. The first question I have is about Vidura. I remember I have read it somewhere in Shastra's books, where it says that when Vidura leave the body, emerge in Yudhishthira's body. So but this time I get to read in the Srimad Bhagavatam slightly different. Does that mean that I have also heard there is so many, it happens millions of times. Everything what is happened, it happens millions of times, and every time with the slight changes. Is it the same for demigods also?
Well, first of all, I would take issue with the fact that I never heard, nor has it ever been explained, that he merges into Yudhishthira's body. Never. That is some misinformation. It's not part of the Shastra at all. And that's not even there as a feature of another yuga. So that is I don't know where you're reading that from, but it's not. No, he is Yamaraj. He came as Vidura, and when he left, he returned to his post as Yamaraj. And that's confirmed here in this particular verse, and it's confirmed by the Acharyas when they speak about this particular Leela.
Okay.
So I would disregard that particular statement. It has no value at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that point. That's an important point to get clarified. Any doubts so that we know that what's right and what's wrong. Thank you, Prabhu. Any questions from devotees? Anything that's coming to your mind, please do raise your hand. Marge, thank you for actually clarifying that point. I never heard that, but sometimes I come across situations where we read something not knowing where it's coming from, and then we read something else and it's completely different. How can we encourage ourselves and other devotees to know what they're reading is the right source? Because there's so much information out there, and sometimes I think it's an overload.
Well, there is so many women out there, but one should stay with their own wife. So many men out there, but there's one wife should stay with her one husband. So chastity and hearing from our sampradaya is a high quality, which allows the devotee to make a tangible progress. So one should hear only from our acharyas, and especially from Srila Prabhupada or Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And we have a lot to hear. It's not like we're shortage on knowledge. We're getting everything we need and more. There's plenty of books. There's many thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of lectures. Why do we have to go somewhere else? That's just, Prabhupada calls that wanderlust. The lust that just wanders around and trying to find something new, something different. It's not necessary, it's just confusing.
Definitely true, Marge. It's very confusing, especially when we bring it in and we confuse it and think it's coming from Srila Prabhupada when it's not. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for that really good example, Marge. It's so good, so good. Thank you. There is let me see, I see okay. Pritchard has to leave. He has
Just
to.
leaving. Hare Krishna. Thank
Okay.
you, Maharaj, for a wonderful class. Thank you. I'll hear
He
the rest
has
later.
to, yeah, he has to start the Harrisburg class, so he has to hop off, Marge. That's why he's leaving.
Preaching is, the preaching, that's the best. You're not leaving, you're actually going.
Going to the next assignment. Hare Krishna.
Good one. Thank you. Any questions from devotees? Please do raise your hand. Marge, oh, go ahead, Mother Scarlet. Please go ahead. No problem. Go right ahead.
Yes, my next question is, you just today talk about the man who was the hunter and the time when he was going to die. So he says, bring my gun, bring my gun. That raised a question to me because I have also read in all the Ekadashi telling that where it says, if you do this, it is so good, it is purifying, and it will help your ancestors, father and father and father, and so on, out of the hellish planet and so on. So what I wonder, does that mean that this man who has been killing and hunting all his life, but his son, you say it was devotee, does this do this means that the son will be good to help him not to pay all that life he gave?
Yeah, he'll get some benefit, obviously, no doubt, but that's up to Krishna to determine what benefit he gets and how much. Yeah.
Thank you.
But he didn't die in his Krishna conscious. He died in a material consciousness. So obviously, after he goes through his suffering, he might wind up getting a good birth in his next life where he can become a devotee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marge. Marge, actually, you were also I was remembering a point that you mentioned in class from Mother Scarlet's question is Krishna will either allow to have it happen or make it happen. Until we surrender, then he takes control of our life. And I'm trying to think, Marge, the allow and the make, why would Krishna allow and or make? Why can't it be one or the other?
Well, when it comes to the material energy, he allows things to happen. When it comes to the spiritual energy, he's in complete control. With the material energy. Unless a person takes shelter of him, then he's there for that devotee. So you can find that verse, I think it's 14:27.
In Bhagavad Gita, Maharaj?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's the book. It's important, really, it's an important verse. I could be wrong of the actual reference, but I think it's 14:27.
14:20. That's the last verse of the chapter, right, Maharaj?
I think so.
Okay, I'm going there right now. I'm just going to share it so that we can
To make
read it.
sure.
There we go. Okay. Is this it, Maharaj?
I am the basis of the impersonal, which is immortal person, eternal, and is the custom. No, this is not it. He says, it's probably in the 13th chapter, somewhere in the 13th. Look up the word permitter. If you can do a search on the word permitter, Permitter, and then go for Bhagavad Gita and kind of hone down your area. The word permitter.
Okay. Permittr. Okay.
Bhagavad Gita, let's see.
There are 4 of them. Yes, March. It's 13 chapters. Up 13:23.
Yeah, I can go to the verse now. Yet in this body there's another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, who is known as the super
Seer
soul.
and permitter.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he sees everything and he allows things to happen, or he protects the devotee from being event. It says the individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the super soul is present not as a finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part of, but as a witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. Yeah. Permitter means he allows the living entity to fulfill his desires for material activity.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
It doesn't interfere with your independence
Mhm.
unless you take shelter and yeah. Okay, so that's there.
Thank you, Maharaj. And devotees, it's chapter in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 23. So I'm going to stop sharing. If devotees can make a note on that chapter. Yes, Devananda Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, praise accept Mahabala blessings and glories to Srila Prabhupada, glories to Guru Maharaj. My question is, why is fear in the core of all religions? Why are we constantly intimidated by Yamaraj or Narasimha? For example, my daughter, he is only 4 years old. He has heard stories about Narasimha, and now she is so afraid of him that she is afraid to go into a dark room or into a toilet because Narasimha is there. I don't think this is healthy. Hare Krishna.
Well, Dave is the friend of the devotees. The Sringadev's relationship with the devotees, or the children of the devotees, is that he is the parent. We worship Nrsingadev as the supreme parent, like we worship our father or mother. In this case, he is like a supreme father who gives protection. There's no need to be fearful of Nrsingadev. If you just read your daughter the story of Nrsingadev and how he protects his 5-year-old devotee, Prahlad Maharaj, and how he kills the non-devotees. So for the non-devotees, he's fear. For the devotees, he's friend. But he looks quite fearsome sometimes. He's a lion. Half lamb, half lion. But Prahlad Maharaj, when Nrsingadev appeared, you can see, if you look on the gallery here, you'll see Silpeshwar. You see the picture of Lord Nrsingadev with Prahlad on his little icon. You see that one? There he
And
is.
it's a beautiful picture, Maharaj, I have to say, because
Yeah.
Prahlad is smiling.
So is Nrsingadev. He's laughing too. So, read some children books to her and just teach her more about Krishna and all the other incarnations. If she's afraid of Nrsingadev, then just read about Krishna, Radharani, or Chaitanya. There's so many incarnations of the Lord.
Hope that helped, Devananda Prabhu. I have, Marge, if it's okay with you, if I could share from my daughters, how they got so attached to Nrsingadev is we used to show them pictures of Nrsingadev when he was peaceful, and then we would tell them stories about how he protected protected Prahlad Maharaj because he was a devotee. And immediately the kids would say, "Oh, so then, for the Lord to protect me, I have to be a devotee." And then they just began to love Nrsingadev. So much so that my first daughter, she's 26 now, and she chants the Nrsimha Kavacha every day. She loves Nrsimha. She loves Nrsimha. She just grew up thinking like that. So yeah, I think if we relate the story of Prahlad Maharaj and
Yeah,
how he was protected, it really helps.
he's the best friend of the devotees.
Yes. Yes, he is, Maharaj. Thank you. Yes, Namrata Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Sorry, my voice is bad. Guru Maharaj, what is so when we go to Dham subtly or unknowingly, we do some Dham aparad sometimes. We don't even know about it. So how to counteract that?
Well, you pray, my dear Lord, somehow or other, I might have committed offense unknowingly, so please forgive me and please help me understand my mistake, and then you just pray by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because continuous chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra eventually, in due course of time, frees one from the reactions of all sinful activities, except when you offend Vaishnavas. So even if you unknowingly offended a Vaishnava, then you can also pray like that.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
And then if you when you come to Mayapur, there's a place here, it's called Koladweep. There's an ashram here in Mayapur, where it's the ashram of Devananda Pandit. And it says that you can go to the ashram of Devananda Pandit in Koladweep and get free from all the reactions of all Vaishnava aparad. It's the only place in the world you can get free from Vaishnava aparad, is in the ashram of Devananda Pandit in Koladweep. And that's a special mercy set up by Lord Chaitanya.
Maharaj, thank you for sharing that secret.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it's not a secret, but thank you for letting us know that. It's so important.
so that's why Prabhupada said, every devotee in the Krishna conscious movement should come every year to the Gaur Purnima festival for 8 days. We're so attached to our little niche wherever we are in the world, and we think, oh, how can I leave? How can I leave my miserable place? I like my misery. Come every year, 8 days. Namrata is going to get initiated on Gaur Purnima this year.
Oh my goodness, Hari Bol! Congratulations, Namrata.
Yeah, so you all come and be there and give your blessings.
Oh wow, this is the best news we've heard for today, the beginning of the year.
With pure mercy of Guru Maharaj.
Oh wow, getting goosebumps, really getting goosebumps right now. Maharaj is powerful. Oh my God, I'm so happy for her.
You should get not goosebumps, you should get swan bumps.
Oh, okay. I'll go to the next level, Maharaj. But oh my God, this is wonderful news, Maharaj.
I was speechless when I heard this news. I mean,
That's how the mercy flows. That's how the mercy flows. It flows unexpectedly.
Prabhupada would often say,
I was looking what to say.
Prabhupada would
I just recently had Vrindavan Dham Yatra, and I was praying to all the Goswami temples for their mercy. So yeah, I was very happy for that. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
say, get well.
She went to Vrindavan, visited all the Goswamis, got purified, got sick, and came back. That's mercy.
Part of my purification, Mataji.
When we went to Mayapur last year, by the third or fourth day, my husband was really sick for 1 week, and he got instant purification too. So yes, thank you. No, this is really good news, Mars. Thank you for sharing this wonderful news with us. This is so nice, so nice. Scarlett Prabhu, go ahead.
Yes, I about just doing apparat. I think it was Kripa Moya who had the lecture in Bhaktivedanta Manor, which I listen to every morning. He mentioned that there are people who live in Vrindavan, and even though that they know everything about the Vrindavan and the Dham and so on, still they go around, they smoke, and it seems that there are so many there that they don't follow the way it's the teaching of Shastras, because they think the Vrindavan is how to say, purifying. They are going to be purified still. And they go around and live their life as they want because they say they're going to be purified because they live there. Is it true that they get their purification just because they live there, and they can live however they want?
Well, it says if you commit sinful activities while living in the Dham, and then you take birth in your next life as an animal in the Dham, and you live one life as an animal in the Dham, and then you go back home, back to Godhead. So they become, Prabhupada says, if you commit sinful activities like sex life, illicit sex in the Dham, or some, and then you get a body of a hog or a dog or some animal in the Dham, and you finish out that life as an animal, and then you go back to Godhead. So if we find fault with such people, we'll also commit offenses. No one can live in the Dham unless Krishna allows it. Radharani allows it. So somehow by Radharani's grace, they're allowed to stay in the Dham. Because if Radharani doesn't want you in the Dham, she will arrange things to happen where you will decide to leave the Dham on your own and thinking it is your best decision. So Dhambasi is just like, I'll give you an example. A Dhambasi is a very special person. When Prabhupada brought his new Western disciples to India, he brought them to Vrindavan also. There was an incident where one of our devotees had a scuffle with one of the Dambasis. The word got back to Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't want to hear any of the details. He said, send that boy back to his country immediately. Yeah. So even if they give you a hard time, you should just stay there with folded hands and accept it as Krishna's mercy.
Marge, I remember in one of your classes that you mentioned, and I remember this was in 2022, because it was right before we went to Mayapur, Prakshit and I. You said in your class that we first have to go to Mayapur, visit Mayapur and approach the deities, Panchatattva, to get permission from Lord Chaitanya there to go to Vrindavan.
Well, yeah, Mahaprabhu is the gateway to Vrindavan.
Yes, and I will never forget that. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, he is Vrindavan, but he is spreading the mercy of Vrindavan everywhere.
That was very deep for me.
Yeah. And
Thank
that
you,
mercy,
Maharaj.
mercy means the Namruchi, getting, developing a taste for chanting the Hare Krishna mantra.
Thank you, Maharaj. Any other questions that you would like to ask devotees? Anything that's coming to your mind, that you would like to clarify? Please do raise your hand. Maharaj, there is a question by Teja Prabhu. He would like to know, Maharaj, when is your next visit to India, approximately in 2024?
I'm leaving India on the 19th of this month. I'm in India now. I'm in Mayapur right now. I'm leaving now on the 20th, 19th, and I come back on the 27th of February. So I'm only gone for 5 weeks.
Okay, and so you will come back on next month, the 27th, and you'll stay for how long, Maharaj? She would like to know.
The Purnima, which is the end of March, the 24th,
Okay.
24th of March.
So I will let Teja Prabhu know that, you'll be back again the end February 25th until the end of March. Okay.
We're going to be in Mayapur, so that's all.
Oh, and March, and that will be okay. So you'll be in Mayapur. Got it. Got it. I will let him know. Perfect. Any other questions from devotees? If there isn't, Maharaj, would you like to chant around, Maharaj?
I'm encouraging everyone to come to Mayapur this year, especially for the installation of Nrsingadev, not installation, the inauguration of Nrsingadev's new temple, which will be the movie, I think, they're going to inaugurate Lord Nrsingadev's new temple. And that's on March 2nd. And also this year is also very special. On the 29th of February is the appearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. And this appearance day is the 150th anniversary of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's appearance in the world. So this will be a special festival commemorating the 150th anniversary of Maharaj's appearance. And that'll be in Mayapur Dham. So that'll be very special. We are surrounded here by Gaudiya Math on all sides. Like just a few days ago, on Sunday, it was the disappearance of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And I went to a Sangha, and I was the only person who spoke English there. Everyone, there was about 10 or 15 sannyasis from the Gaudiya Math, and they all came to honor Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. They all spoke in Bengali. Of course, there was a few people who could understand English, but the whole thing was in Bengali. I gave my English talk. I guess they said, "Who is this? This guy from the West,
Maharaj, it's interesting you said, because when we were in Mayapur, I never knew there was so many, like that whole street was completely of Gaudiya Maths.
Yeah, well, you go up and down the road, but each side, go out the gate, they're on the left, and they're
And then the right.
Right, and then there is Chaitanya Bhavan, which is the ashram of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati established that temple. There's deities there. There's also holy places in that area also. Yeah, Gaudiya Math we're sandwiched in between the Gaudiya Math here.
We are. And Marge, how is the relationship between all the Gaudiya Maths on that street with ISKCON, since we have sandwich in the middle?
You can see they all came to our temple for this function. We held the temple, and they also came.
Wow.
Yeah, so it looks like it's developed. There's one, Bodhaya. He didn't come for this particular festival. Bodhaya Maharaj. He is the disciple of one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciples. He's a grand disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta. And he speaks in English, and he's always glorifying Srila Prabhupada. He's preaching to the Western people also. He also goes to the West.
Mm.
So yeah, Prabhupada made such an impression that now many of his godbrothers are really appreciating what he did. And many of the disciples of his godbrothers are also preaching now to Western people.
Wow. Really nice. Yeah, I was really surprised to see that, like you said, from left and right, you walk out of the gate and it's completely covered. Both
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah, they're always doing kirtan in the streets too.
Yes, Maharaj. I learned that yeah, 24/7. They are on it, on the streets.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Okay, so is there anything else before
No,
we-
Maharaj. So, Maharaj, would you like to chant one round before we end?
Yeah, I would. There is something coming up for me, and somebody will be knocking on my door to drag me out of my room in a few minutes.
Marge, if it's too tight, we can always skip it, Marge. Yeah, we can skip it, Marge. I'm completely fine. I just wanted to respect, you know, your time. So that's fine. And we really thank all the devotees for joining us. And we look forward to another class with Marge. And until then, have again a very happy Krishna conscious New Year as we begin 2024. Vantrakraptibhyascha kripasindhabeva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Chandramauli Swami ki jai. And have a wonderful day. Hari Hari Bol.
Anasuya, did you get my message about the change in?
Yes, Marge, and I apologize that I will definitely reply to you today. Yes.
Thank you
Okay.
very much for today.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the class.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone, here.
Pranams.
Mm.